Hey guys, Non-Zero here, coach of the Pittsburgh Celesteelas, bringing you my draft analysis for the DGBA Season 2. So we're back at it again this season. Last season we had some fun with the team that revolved around Mega Gyarados, Tapu Koko, and Infernape. And so we're going back at it again. This time the DGBA has another 12 teams, and we've decided to mix up the draft format a little bit. So last season it was just a free draft, which meant that you could draft anything you wanted. This time you're required to have 1 Mega, 1 Tier S, 3 Tier 1s, 3 Tier 2s, 2 Tier 3s, and then 1 Mon that's not in any tier. Based on some tiers that we created based on how viable things are in Draft League format in general. So in this video, I'm just going to be going over my picks and sort of my thought process as I was picking what I was picking. And tomorrow I'll be posting week 0 of the power rankings. So the power rankings based only on the drafts of each team. And in that video, I'm going to be going over briefly just some of the things I notice about each draft, some weaknesses, some interesting strategies that I might notice, some heat sets that I think they might try out sometime in the season, whatever. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into round 1. So I was 11 out of 12 in the draft order, and the draft order is snaked. So that means that I picked 2nd every even number round and 11th every odd number round. So for the first round, I was somewhat near the end, which meant that a lot of people before me were making their Tier S picks. And by the time it got to me, there were only like 3 or 4 people who hadn't made their Tier S pick. And I actually decided that I would postpone my Tier S pick until much later, because of the Mons that were remaining, I thought there were at least 4 or 5 that were similarly viable, so I didn't think it was worth my while to make the S tier pick in round 1. So instead, I went and redrafted the MVP from last season, Mega Gyarados. So why do I love this mon so much? I honestly think that this is maybe the single most difficult mon to prepare for, is that if this thing gets to +2, there's really not much you can do. It runs through almost everything in the format at that point. Like, because of its ability Mold Breaker, having a mon with Sturdy, or having a mon Unaware, or having a mon with, say, Water Absorb, none of those are going to help you. Even Mimikyu can be one-shotted because Mold Breaker goes through Disguise. So like, that's why I think this thing is really, really scary. And it can sit off on quite a few things, because its bulk is pretty good, especially from the special side. In addition to the Intimidate it gets pre-Mega, it definitely can find opportunities to set up and then just run through teams. And that's exactly what it did last season. And I'm hoping that at the very least this season it'll be a pain to my opponents when they're team building. Like, I think that when you see a Mega Gyarados on your opponent's team, that's very, very restrictive for team building, because you have to make sure you don't just lose to this thing. Anyways, that was my round 1 pick, and so for my round 2 pick, I decided to go for another mon from last season. I only had 2 mons in common between Season 1 and Season 2. I think maybe there were 2 of the most important mons on my team last year. And the second mon is Skarmory. So Skarmory is amazing in the format, especially with the current megas that are released, like Mega Lopunny, Mega Medicham. A lot of physically based megas have been released, and this thing can handle them all very, very well. Like, this Skarmory, it walls just so much of the metagame. It's insane. Like, for example, if you look at the S tier, it walls basically everything that's not an electric type in the S tier, which is just amazing. And so Skarmory, of course, being a great mon to get up hazards, to get rid of hazards if you don't want them up, to whirlwind things out. It has Sturdy, so it can be a nice emergency check to a sweeper. It has Whirlwind, has Toxic, has Roost for reliable recovery. It can run a Rocky Helmet set, it can run a Red Card set, it can even run an Assault Vest set with weak armor, which I've done before. Offensive Skarmory, don't rule it out. But in any case, Skarmory was really kind of an important mon to the team that I was planning on drafting. Alright, so for round 3, I noticed that there was a tier 2 still available that was just really amazing for a tier 2, and I really wanted to try to build a team around it, and I thought that Skarmory would complement it really, really well. And that mon is Volcarona. So Volcarona is a really good win con. Its main weakness is that it's 4 times weak to stealth rocks, 4 times weak to rock moves in general, which is definitely a liability. It means that if I bring Volcarona, I'm going to really want to make sure that I have some reliable hazard removal. So Skarmory is one element of that reliable hazard removal. I'm going to pick up a couple others down the draft, as you'll see, but Volcarona, by its own, it can just Quiver Dance up and win games. Volcarona is actually the mon that I designated as my Z Crystal user. You're allowed to designate up to 1 Z Crystal user on your team, meaning that I can choose to slap a Z Crystal on this thing if I want. There were a couple of other interesting choices for the Z Crystal user that I drafted on a bit later. I ended up going with this one though, just because there are a couple of hard walls to Volcarona if you don't carry a Z move. Or maybe not hard walls, but the things that you have a lot of trouble breaking through. Bulky water types, for example, and bulky fire types. They can sometimes take you on very effectively. Which is why having a Z move on this thing is a beautiful idea. If your opponent has a bulky water type, you can run Bloom Doom off of Solar Beam, and that'll definitely one-shot them. If your opponent has something like maybe a Tentacruel or Toxapex, then you can run Z Psychic. You can also run Z Hurricane for just an insanely strong flying move, and finally you can just attach the Z move to your stabs if you just want an absolutely absurdly powerful move. That's Volcarona. It just kind of sets up, it sweeps with its dual stabs and a bit of coverage. It has access to Roost if you want to run a bulkier Volcarona, and just be able to Quiver Dance up a couple more times than otherwise. That's an option. And in general, this mon is just very threatening. It's another mon that you need to make sure you have an answer to, because if you don't, it gets the chance to Quiver Dance up a couple of times, then that's just game over once again. Let's go ahead and jump into my 4th pick. So for my 4th pick, you'll notice that both Gyarados and Volcarona are weak to rocks. And while Skarmory does have hazard removal, I wanted another reliable hazard remover that I would bring probably to most games, or that I at least had the potential of bringing to a lot of games. And I ended up picking the next mon, which is Latias. And I think Latias is just amazing for this team as it's being built so far. It helps keep hazards off the field for Volcarona and Gyarados. It also just provides a nice Spadef presence to complement Skarmory's Fizdef bulk. And in general, Skarmory Latias is a really cool defensive core. I mean, Latias is going to take on the fire and electric types that Skarmory doesn't enjoy, and Skarmory can deal with the fairy types that Latias has trouble breaking through. Besides being a hazard remover with Defog, it can also be a win con on itself. A bulky, Calm Mind Latias is something that I actually fell victim to last season, and so it's a great thing to have on my side as an option this season. After a couple of Calm Minds, if you run, say, a full Fizdef Latias, it can be very difficult to break down. In addition to that, it gets some nice coverage. It does have access to Size Shock, which is really important. It means that Spadef walls aren't going to stop it cold after it's Calm Minded up a couple of times. And it also gets access to Healing Wish, which I think is amazing. It means that I can play a little recklessly with my other win conditions earlier on, and then Healing Wish them up later potentially. It also gives access to some nice tech like Trick if I'm facing something of a bulkier or stallish team. And that can be always useful to trick a Choice Scarf onto something. It does get Roost for longevity, and in general it's just a very solid mon. It gives me kind of a switch into most special type attackers. Alright, so by this point I had more or less decided what kind of team I wanted to draft, and the next mon gave me some pretty strong priority, gave me another win condition, and in general I think it just fit really well on how the team is coming together so far. That's going to be Diggersby though. So Diggersby, of course, with huge power, it's hitting really hard. It turns the base 56 attack into an effective base 160 something attack, which is insane. It means that its quick attack is hitting really hard, especially if you throw a Life Orb or a Choice Band on this thing. There are a couple of ways that Diggersby can act as a win condition. It has access to agility, so it can agility up and then, go ham with its dual stabs, or it can sword stance up and then sweep the rest of the team with its priority quick attack. So a couple of options there. It does get some decent coverage, like things like Fire Punch, to hit steel types, for example. It does get some decent coverage, like Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, I believe it has access to. And it also gets access to U-Turn, so it can act as a source of momentum if my opponent solves a good answer to Diggersby around. But in general, this is just a really threatening mon, something that can force things out. It also gives me a nice balance speed tier wise. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue on with my picks. So next up after Diggersby, you see that I have a bunch of setup mons, right? I have Swords Dance Agility Diggersby, I've got Quiver Dance Volcarona, I've got Dragon Dance Mega Gyarados, and I've got Calm Mind or even potentially Dragon Dance Latias. So a whole bunch of setup mons. And because of this, I was planning on drafting the next one, and I'm thankful that it didn't get snapped up before now, because round 6 I was able to pick up Alolan Ninetales. Now Alolan Ninetales is really cool mon. It sets up Hail with its ability, and then it can set up Aurora Veils. Aurora Veil being a combined Reflect and Light screen, lasting up to 8 turns if you throw a Light Clay on this, or even potentially lasting still 5 turns, being enough for win conditions to just set up and win. So maybe the downside of Alolan Ninetales is that it just has a tough time getting itself off the field, if that makes sense. Like, the best it can really do is just nasty plot up and sort of force the opponent to take it down, which might well be something that I tried doing this season. The Aurora Veil is absolutely insane. Even without the Aurora Veil, it's nice to have a form of weather control, especially because there are a lot of other teams which also have forms of weather, whether they be Gigalith, Pelipper, Charizard Y. There are a whole bunch of different types of weather out there. That's Alolan Ninetales. It's I think mostly going to be there as a utility mon this season, although it does have some decent offenses, like its special attack isn't terrible, and after a nasty plot, Stab Blizzard is going to be hitting pretty hard. So on to the next pick. So for the next pick, there are a couple of options on the table that I was sort of picking between at this point. I was thinking tier 3, right? So I was going to make a tier 3 pick. And I was really debating for a while between Hitmonlee and Medicham. Now both of these are very strong fighting types. Both of these can be win conditions on their own. Both of these just hit absurdly hard. And so it was really tough to make a choice in the end. They both have priority as well. I ended up going for Hitmonlee. And the main reason I went for Hitmonlee is because of Rapid Spin. Rapid Spin, having another spinner, I think is just really what this team wants, especially because Alolan Ninetales gave me another Rock Sweetness. I really want to make sure I keep hazards off the field. And the great thing about Hitmonlee is even if your opponent has a Rapid Spinner, it gets access to knockoff, so it can sort of punish Rapid Spinners coming in. It has a solid 120 base attack stat, so it can definitely do some damage. It's one of those mons that does require your opponent to definitely plan for it, because if they don't, then I might bring something like a Fake Out, Unburden High Jump Kick set, or even just a Choice Scarf Reckless High Jump Kick set, which hits really, really hard. That's Hitmonlee. It has some great Spadef, not the best defenses, but it is a nice utility mon, being able to Rapid Spin, being able to hit basically everything with a combination of Poison Jab, its Fighting Stab, and Knockoff. The next one was probably the most difficult decision in the draft for me, because at this point, I had a couple of plans, but someone had taken Raikou a couple of rounds earlier, and that's what I wanted my last tier 1 to be. I kind of didn't think it would be taken that early in the draft, but it ended up being scooped up, so I had to sort of revise my plans a bit, and I ended up going for Dugtrio. So the two choices I had at this point were Serperior and Dugtrio. and I ended up going for Dugtrio. Now I know I already have a ground type, but Dugtrio does a lot of things that Diggersby doesn't, and vice versa. Dugtrio, of course, with Arena Trap, gives me a great way to revenge kill mons, and sometimes forces the opponent to run Shed Shell on their electric types, even if I don't bring Dugtrio, because just the threat of Dugtrio being able to just eliminate electric types is often enough for the opponent to have to run a Shed Shell, which means that they're not running, a power boosting item, they're not running leftovers. It's another mon that really restricts team building, because you always have to watch out for it just eliminating your win conditions. Just having Sash Dugtrio or Scarf Dugtrio as a possible revenge killer. So Serperior would have been pretty cool, since it's a win con on its own. It could also run defensive sets with Substitute and Leaf Seed, that sort of thing. The reason I ended up going with Dugtrio in the end was because of Memento. And Dugtrio does get access to Memento. Dugtrio is very, very fast, and it gets access to Memento, which I think is really amazing for this team. So you imagine Mega Gyarados, Volcarona, or Diggersby getting a free turn to set up, and the game might well be over. That's why I think Memento Dugtrio could definitely be a threat. I'm looking forward to seeing how Dugtrio can be used this season, both as a revenge killer and as a way to generate some serious momentum for my win conditions in the back. So for my next pick, I noticed that my team doesn't have the most solid switch-ins. Latias and Skarmory are both pretty bulky, but I don't really want to switch my, Gyarados, Volcarona, or Diggersby in to anything. And in general, my mons are kind of a bit frail at this point. I can't switch into much, and so I wanted to provide a solid pivot to my team. And there was one in Tier 3 that I've been eyeing for a while, and that is Umbreon. Umbreon is really, really bulky. It gets access to Baton Pass, it gets access to Wish, so I can keep the rest of my team a bit healthy. And the slow Baton Pass is the main reason, to be honest, that I chose this Umbreon. It does function pretty well as a bulky wall-type mon on its own, but I think most importantly, it gives me some form of momentum. It can Wish and Baton Pass out that Wish to something like a Gyarados or a Volcarona. Let's say that my opponent has rocks up, right? And for some reason I can't get rid of the rocks. Let's say that all of the forms of hazard removal that I've brought have been fainted. Then what Umbreon allows me to do is have a slow Wish Pass into something like my Volcarona, allowing it to be at full health after it comes in, on rocks. Which is pretty cool. In general, I think this Umbreon is an amazing support to my team, and I really thought it would fit well on the team. Now this was round 9, and so the reason I drafted Umbreon round 9 instead of my Tier S was because the other team that hadn't drafted their Tier S at this point came before me in the drafting order, which means that in round 10 I would go before them. And so round 10 was finally going to be the round where I pick my S tier mon. And it was a really tough choice. I was even briefly considering Nihilego, but then I really don't have too much for bulky water types on my team. And so in the end, I opted to go for Tapu Bulu. The main reason I picked Tapu Bulu over Kartana is because I was having somewhat of a fighting weakness, and so I didn't want anything sweeping me with priority fighting moves or something like the like. You notice that I only have at this point a pre-Mega Gyarados and Latias as fighting with us. But this Tapu Bulu gives me another nice answer to those fighting types, and in general it just gives me a really, really strong wall breaker. There are a lot of different things you can do with Tapu Bulu. It does have that crippling 4x weakness to poison, but even despite that, it's bulky enough that you can EV it to survive, let's say, just straight HP poisons. And it can run a bulky Subseed set, it can run a Scarf Woodhammer Horn Leech set. It has some nice coverage in Stone Edge to hit fire and flying types, as well as Brick Break to hit steel types. And it also does have access to Whirlwind and Roar, so it gives me something for setup sweepers, which previously I only had Skarmory for those. And so yeah, I think Tapu Bulu was just an amazing S tier pick for this team. So you notice like a theme here, which is that a lot of these picks are just really restrictive on team building. Like Tapu Bulu is another mon where if you don't prepare for it, you can literally just click Woodhammer or click Hornleech 6 times and win. Like having a resistance is not necessarily enough to answer Tapu Bulu. You need to have a 4 times resistance. Otherwise, the Woodhammers are going to be, 2-hit KOing you. And so that is Tapu Bulu. And finally, we move on to the last pick. The last pick is going to be Type Null. So at this point, the obvious last pick, given that I have Alolan Ninetales, was going to be Alolan Sandslash, which is also untiered. The reason I didn't go for Alolan Sandslash is because I have some experience using it in VGC, and you really need some kind of Z crystal for Alolan Sandslash to function well. By that I mean it's just not picking up the knockouts you want it to if it's not carrying something like an Icy MZ or a Groundy MZ or a Steely MZ. You really need that boost in power, otherwise the issue is that you only have a base 100 attack. Even if you get a Sword Stance up, the moves that correspond to your stabs, which are Icicle Crash and Iron Head, are both fairly weak. In general, I just didn't think that Alolan Sandslash should function well in the team. Even if I get Aurora Veil up, it's still dropping the fire and fighting moves, not to mention that a whole bunch of other teams at this point had drafted even more weather than before. So there's a good chance that your opponent's either going to have some mon running, say, Rain Dance or Sunny Day, or just an automatic weather setter. Alright, so now to Type Null. Why did I pick Type Null? So Type Null, I think, is amazing for this team. Like, I can understand why it's untiered, because its offenses are mediocre. It has some very solid defenses, especially when coupled with the Violet, but it does not have any form of reliable recovery, which is really what holds it back. If it got reliable recovery, it would literally just be a better Porygon 2, but it doesn't get any reliable recovery, which means that it's not the best wall. But it's an amazing pivot. So the reason that I drafted Type Null, is the primary reason probably, is that slow parting shot for this team is just so good. It means that I can just switch this mon in on most attacks, get a slow parting shot off, potentially wish heal this up later with Umbreon, and repeat the process. It's extremely bulky with its Violet. To give you an idea, something like an Adamant Scarf Landorus's Earthquake is doing something like 30% to this thing, if it's defensive. Even if it's not defensive, if it's just max HP, it's still not even a 2-hit KO, which is amazing. Like, this mon is really bulky. And in addition to being defensive, it can also dish out some damage on its own. It has 95 stats around the board, except for its 59 speed, which really just makes it perfect for giving those slow parting shots. But the decent offensives means that you can also use it, say, as a Sword Stance Explosion mon, which is another way to get in your sweeper safely. It also gets access to U-Turn, although U-Turn in most cases is inferior to Parting Shot. U-Turn is going to be useful if you face something like a Bisharp or a Milotic, which would want to take advantage of the boost you'd be giving it with Parting Shot. So that's going to be my draft. I really like how it looks in the end. The draft has a lot of win conditions, and Diggersby, Gyarados, Latias, Hitmonlee can even be one, Volcarona for sure, and even Tapu Bulu. All of those are like dangerous win conditions and also really fun win conditions to use, and everything I drafted that's not a win condition is basically a utility. It helps the win conditions to do what they need to do best, which is sweep through teams. You got Type Null with the slow parting shot, you got Umbreon with the wish passing and the slow baton passing, Dugtrio with the rocks, the memento, and also the revenge killing, opposing sweepers, and finally Skarmory with hazard control, beautiful hazard control, as well as just being a nice physical presence to complement Latias. That's going to be our team, and I'm really looking forward to using it. I think it's pretty solid. We definitely do have a couple of weaknesses, and I think One problem the team may face is that I'll be facing, so to say, 6 Pokemon slot syndrome, that I'll really want to bring more than 6 mons just because of how the different synergies work between them. But even still, I think that this team definitely has the potential to put in some work, and I'm looking forward to coaching it going into Season 2. So that's going to be all for this video, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Power Rankings video. Peace.